Hi everyone, this is Abhinav and welcome back to the C programming series. In today's video, we will learn arrays in C from basics to practical usage. Just imagine a situation where I will tell you to store the marks of 100 students. Now, what you will do in this case? Will you create 100 variables to store the marks? Is this practical? Right now, I have told you to store the marks of 100 students, but what if I will tell you to store the marks of 2000 students, 10,000 students? So, is it practical? No, that's not practical. This is exactly where arrays comes into the picture. Means storing a large amount of data is not practical with the help of variables. For examples, see, if I want to store the marks of 100 students, what I can do, I can make 100 variables: int marks 1, int marks 2, int marks 3, int marks 4, and so on marks 100. I can declare 100 variables, and then after I can assign the values to each variable. I can assign values to each variable. For example, m1 is equals to 40 marks, m2 is equals to 70 marks, and so on. Clear? We can do this, but this is not practical. This is very difficult to handle. Means see, we can perform our task by these particular steps. We can declare the variable 100 variables, then we can assign the values, and then whatever we want to do the operations, we can perform the operations. But how difficult it would be to handle so many variables in the program, just imagine. And the program would become very lengthy. For examples, you are declaring 100 variables, then after you are assigning 100 variables, so program would become unnecessarily lengthy. That's why the concept of arrays is useful in these types of situations where we can group similar data together. So now let's introduce arrays. Array is a data structure. Array is a data structure, and data structures are used to store data. Data structures are used to store data. Don't worry, we will discuss data structures in very detail. So what is array? An array is a collection of similar type of data. Arrays are a collection of similar type of data stored in a contiguous memory location. So two things is very important in this definition. First is similar type, and then after contiguous memory location. We will discuss them one by one. So with the help of arrays, we can store multiple values at a single place. You are going to declare one array, and in that particular array you can store multiple values. It depends on you how much size of array you will initialize, and then after you can store that much values in your array. So array is nothing but a collection of similar type of data stored in a contiguous memory allocation. Now two important points here: similar type and contiguous memory locations. So as you can see in the definition, it stores the data of similar type. Means array will contain data of one type only. Means your array can't contain data of multiple types. So similar type means you will create an array to store similar type of data. You can't store mixed type of data in a single array. For example, we can't store double in a array of integer data type. We can't store character in an array of integer data type. If you will try to do so, for example, if you will try to store a double value in an integer data type, then in that case what will happen, this double will get converted to integer, and then this integer will be stored in the integer data type array. So generally this is not advised to do. So what you will do, you will create an array of a particular data type, and you will store the elements of same data type in that particular array. I hope this is clear. Then after, the next important point was it stores the data in contiguous memory locations. What is contiguous memory location? Whenever you write a program, memory is allocated for your program. A memory is allocated to your program by the operating system. So what happens that whenever you create a variable, whenever you create any other data structure, memory is assigned to that particular data structure or that particular variable. So what happens that array stores every element in the contiguous memory location. For example, if the first element is here, this is the first element, then the next element will be next to this first element. So next element will be here, then next element will be here, next element will be here. So this is contiguous memory fashion. This is contiguous memory fashion. See, in case of variables, what happens if you create two variables, int x is equals to 10 and int y is equals to 20. So what happens in this case, if let's suppose this is your memory, then x is created over here, x can be present over here, y can be over here. X can be at any random location, y can be at any random location. It is not mandatory that both of will be present next to each other. They can be at any random location. But in case of array, what happens? In case of array, a chunk of memory is blocked to store the array. For example, this memory is used to store the particular array in which every element will lie next to each other. For example, if this is the first element, the next element will lie here, next element will lie here. So every element lies to the next to each other. So this is contiguous memory location. Means array stores the data in the form of contiguous memory location. So this is how data is stored in a array. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now, why we were using the arrays? Because we were finding it inconvenient. We were finding this inconvenient to make, and it was hard to manage, as well as the code was becoming very lengthy. That's why array came into existence. So now how we can handle this situation? So this can be handled with the help of arrays. If I want to create, if I want to store marks of 100 students, then I will create an array of 100 size, and what this will do, this will store the marks of 100 students. Now we will discuss the syntax. Right now you might be confused about the syntax, so don't worry. Now we will discuss the syntax to declare an array. First you will write the data type, and then after you will write the array name, and then after big brackets, and inside big brackets you will define the size. Inside big brackets you will define the size. This is the syntax to declare an array. First, data type means which type of data this will store. What this will signify? Which type of data it will store. This is array name. Simple. It can be any valid C identifier. Valid C identifier means you will have to follow the naming rules, and then after here you define the size of the array. In this way we declare an array. Now what we wanted to do, we wanted to store the marks of 100 students. So let's create an array to store the marks of 100 students. How I will store it? First I will write the int. Why? Because generally marks are of integer type, so we are creating an array to store the marks which is of integer type. So I will write int, and then after I will write array name. Let's suppose the name of array is ARR, and then after I want to store the marks of 100 students. So what will be the size of my array? My size of my array will be 100. So this is the syntax to declare an array of size 100. Now you can store 100 data, 100 elements into this particular array. So don't you think this is cleaner, easier to manage? Now the question is, why we use arrays? So the first point will be, it stores large amount of data efficiently. For example, in this case, I wanted to store the marks of 100 students. So what I did, I created an array. So array is used to store large amount of data efficiently. See, we have already discussed that if we were not using arrays, then we were creating multiple variables to store the data. So in this case, we can, if we will use arrays, we can avoid multiple variables. Then after, some more advantages of arrays are like you can use loops with the arrays easily. For example, if I want to print the 100 marks of 100 students, or if I want to take input for the marks of 100 students, then we will just write a loop and we will just take the input or we will print it on the console. It is very easy. And then after, one more advantage, it can perform operations like searching and sorting. Let's quickly summarize why we need arrays. First of all, array stores large amount of data efficiently. For example, I wanted to store marks of 100 students. I wanted to store marks of 100 students. So what happened? If we will not make an array, or if we will not use an array, then we will have to create 100 variables, and then after we will have to assign the marks. The code will become unnecessarily lengthy. But if we will use array, we can store the large amount of data very efficiently. For example, I will just declare an array in a single line, and then we can store 100 elements into this particular array. Then after, if we will use arrays, we will avoid multiple variables. We have discussed it right now. With the help of arrays, you can use loops on arrays easily. So that you can print the data, you can take input, you can access the data, you can print it on the console. For example, if I want to print the marks of 100 students which we have stored in this particular array, then I will just write a loop and we can display the marks of 100 students. So it's become easy to access the elements. Then after, searching and sorting can be performed on array. Now array gives you more options to perform search as well as to perform sort. You can search an element in an array, you sort the array in a particular order, whether it is ascending or whether it is descending. Clear? So these were the advantages of array. Now let's come to the next topic, which is how we can initialize values to the array. This is your array, and if you declare an array of size, then you can directly initialize the value like this, separated by commas. See, if you remember variable, what we used to do, int x is equals to 5. This is a normal variable initialization. I was directly assigning the value to the variable x. In the same way, if I will declare an array, we can assign values directly to this particular array. For example, in this case, we assigned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this particular array. How we are assigning the values? We are writing the values inside the curly braces separated by commas. For example, curly brace will start, then 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4 and comma 5. So in this way, values will be assigned to this particular array. So what will happen behind the scene? Behind the scene, an array will be created like this, and then after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be stored in this particular array. Now what will happen if you will assign an array with less number of elements? For example, we have declared an array of size 5, but we are assigning only 3 elements. So in this case, what will happen? In this case, an array of size 5 will be declared, and then after 1, 2, 3 will be assigned to the first address, second address and third column, and rest will be assigned with garbage value or 0. Garbage value or 0 depends on compiler. Some compiler will assign garbage value and some compiler will assign 0. So in this way, you can initialize the array. One more way to initialize the array is you will not initialize the size, and you can directly assign the elements. So whatever will be the count of elements, that much size of array will be declared. For example, in this case, 1, 2, 3 elements are there. So an array of 3 elements will be declared. So this is how you can initialize arrays. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now, one thing which array supports is indexing. Means arrays provide you the support for indexing. Indexing are nothing but the numbers given to the columns of this particular array. For example, in this case, the first column has been assigned a number 0, second column has been assigned a number 1, third column has been assigned a number 2, fourth column has been assigned a number 3, fifth column has been assigned a number 4. So array supports indexing, and indexing always starts from 0. What will be the last index of the array? If the size of the array is 5, then last index will be 4. Why? Because indexing is starting from 0. So the last index will be size minus 1. I hope this is clear to everyone. Array supports indexing, and with the help of index numbers, you can access that particular element of the array. For example, if I want to access the first element, what I can do, I can write array of 0 to access the first element. For example, in this case, just let's take an example. I want to assign different value to the first element. So I can write array of 0 is equals to 10. So what it will do, it will go to the 0th index number, and then after it will overwrite the value, and it will be updated to 10. So with the help of index numbers, you can access the array. For example, if you want to access and update the fourth element, so you will go to the index number 3 and you will update it with 20. So index number 3 will be updated to 20. So this is also possible. In this way you can access the elements. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now see how we can take inputs from the user, and then after how we can print it on the console. Array declaration is clear. How we can take input from the user. Now you all know how to initialize an array, means how to assign values to an array. What you can do, you can directly assign column wise, or you can directly assign while declaring the array. Both options you know. Now we will see how a user can input the array elements. For example, see, I will create an array of size 5, an array of size 5. So this is my array of size 5, and what it will do, it will store integer type values, 5 integer type values. How we can take input from the user? So what user can do, user can use the scanf function to take input. So scanf %d. I want to put the very first value at the very first place, means at the 0th index. So what I will write, I will write array of 0, and a scanf takes an address. So I will have to give the address. That's why I will write ampersand array of 0. What this will do, this will take input from the user. This will take one input from the user, and it will store that particular value at the 0th index. So an array of size C, an array of size 5 will be created. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Index numbers will be from 0 to 4. When this line will be executed, user will enter a value. Let's suppose user entered 10. So this 10 will get stored at the very first index. Again I want to enter one more value, so I will again write the same code, %d, and address of the first index. So ampersand array of 1. Let's suppose user enters 20, so 20 will be stored in this particular column. In the same way, if you want to store the next element, then you can use the array2, and you can insert value, or you can assign value to the second index. In the same way, on third index, if I want to store a number, I will write ampersand array of 3. So 40 will be stored in this particular scenario. And in the same way, I can assign index number 4 also with a value. So let's suppose 50 is here. So in this way you can assign values to your arrays. Now again same, that we are repeating our code a number of times. Means if we will have to take input for an array of 1000 entries, then what we are going to do? Are we going to write 1000 scanf statements? Is this practical? No. So we have discussed the point that you can use loops on arrays very efficiently. So see, we are repeating the same line of code. We are repeating a scanf, 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 scanf. Means we are repeating a single line of code multiple times. And whenever you repeat a single line of code, or whenever you want to repeat a block of code, what do you use? You use loops in that particular case. So in this case also we can use a loop. For example, I will try to take input with the help of loop. Before using the loop, just try to observe this thing. See, in the very first line of code, you are writing array of 0. And then after you are writing array of 1. Then after you are writing array of 2. Then after you are writing array of 3. And then after you are writing array of 4. So your array is of size 5 and you are running from 0 to 4. You are using 0 to 4 index numbers. So we can write a loop which will run from 0 to 4. Int I equals to 0 and I less than 4, I plus plus. And what I will do? I will just write a scanf, then after percentage %d, and then after address of array of I, so that in every iteration I will increase. For example, I will start from 0, so this will be array of 0. In next iteration I will be 1, so next iteration it will be 1, array of 1. In next iteration it will be 2, so it will become array of 2. In next iteration it will be 3, so it will become array of 3. So what should I write? Less than 4 or less than 5? I want to execute till 4, so I will write less than 5. I hope this is clear to everyone. In this way we can take input for the array. Now I want to print the array on the console. For example, now let's suppose I will create an array, and let's suppose this array is containing these particular elements. So this is your array and this is containing these particular elements 1 2 3 4 5. Now I want to print this on the console. So if I want to print the very first value, what I can do? I can write printf %d and array of 0. I can write it, yes. So what will be printed? 1 will be printed on the console. If I will write printf %d array of 1, then what will be printed? Array of 1, this block. 2 will be printed on the console. In the same way, if I will write array of 2, what will be printed? This block. 3 will be printed on the console. In the same way, if I will write array of 4, so what will be printed? Array of 4 is 5. So 5 will be printed on the console. Again, this is not a practical thing. Now we know about loops, so we can write a loop and we can easily print the whole array very easily. So printf %d, this is my loop to print the array on the console. I hope this is clear. So on arrays you can use loops very efficiently. With the help of loops you can take input of the array. With the help of loops you can perform operations on arrays. With the help of loops you can print the array. So I hope this is clear to everyone. Printing as well as taking input as well as performing some operations. We will solve questions and then we will deep dive in performing operations on a particular array. So don't worry about that particular thing. So some important points which you will have to keep in mind is that all elements of the array should be of same type. All elements of the array should be of same type, means every element should be of same type. For example, if you are declaring an array to store integer data, so every element should be integer. Otherwise it will show you some undefined behavior. It will, for example, there will be some data loss. So every element should be of same type. Then after, next thing which you will keep in mind, that size of array is fixed. Size of array is fixed. It can't change later on in the program. Once you will declare the size, that will be unchanged for the entire program. So array is not dynamic in nature. Array is static in nature. Once you will declare the size of array, it can't change and it can't store more than the size. If you will try to store elements more than its size, then it will show you a error. So size of array is fixed and you can store only that much elements into that particular array. Next point which you will have to keep in mind, that it supports indexing and indexing starts from 0. And then one more important point, stores the data in contiguous memory fashion. So this was the important points regarding the arrays which you will have to keep in mind. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now, let's see some common mistakes what you will generally do. For example, if you will declare an array of size 5 and if you will try to do array of 5 is equals to 0. For example, you are trying to access the fifth index and you are trying to assign a value 0 or let's suppose 10. What this will do, what this line of code will do, this line of code will show you an undefined behavior, means this will give you an error. What happens in this case? See, you have declared an array of size 5, so a size 5 array will be created and its index number will be 0 1 2 3 and 4. But you are trying to access the fifth index number which is not present in this particular array. That's why it will show you undefined behavior. So never try to access any index number which is out of bound, means which is not in the range of that particular array. I hope this is clear to everyone. Next, one important point, for example, how we can declare the size of an array. Now see, there are some ways in which you can define the size. First way is you can directly assign a constant value to the size. For example, int array of size 100. This is one of the most safest way to declare the size of an array. This is the standard and correct way to declare the size of an array. In this case, what happens, whenever the compilation starts, the memory is allocated during the compile time to your array. So this is the safest way to declare the size of an array. Next, what you can do, in this case, first you will take a input from the user. First you will take a input from the user. Let's suppose I will declare a variable n and then after I will take input for this particular n. And then after I will declare an array of size n. So this is a variable length array. In this case, the memory is allocated at the runtime. Memory is allocated at the runtime. In this case, memory is allocated at the compile time. See, there are two phases of execution. Whenever you hit the run button of any particular program, the program is executed in two phases. The very first phase is compilation phase and the second phase is execution phase. In this phase, your execution of code starts. So there are two phases, compilation phase and execution phase. So whenever you will declare the size with the help of any constant variable, for example, in this case, I have declared the size with the help of a constant that is 100. So at the compile time, means during the compilation, during the phase 1 compilation phase, the memory is allocated to this particular array. Now how much memory will be allocated to this particular array? So memory will be size of the array into size of the data type. For example, in this case, size of array is 100 and size of data type, it is storing integer data type array, so size of data type will be 4, so total 400 bytes will be allocated to this particular array, and this happens at compile time. Means during the compilation process, this memory is allocated to this particular array. But in this case, what happens in this case, you are creating an array of size n. You are creating an array of size n. What happens that compiler has no idea about the value of n. Why? Because the compiler will get the value of n at the runtime. Means after the compilation, when your execution will start, then you are going to enter the value of n. So compiler has no idea about the value of n. So the memory is allocated at the runtime in this particular case. What happens that compiler has no idea about how much memory it is going to take, so the memory is allocated at the runtime. Now this is not safe way, this is not a safe way to declare an array, not a safe way to declare an array. Why? Because see, in this case compiler has no idea about the value of n. Means during compilation phase, compiler have no idea about the value of n. So compiler becomes a little bit confused that what should I assign, which value should assign, what should I keep the size of array. So there is a little bit confusion in compiler, little bit confusion for the compiler, and that's why it is not considered as a safe way. But see, one more thing which I want to make very clear, that earlier compilers were not supporting this particular thing. In earlier compilers or in old compilers, there was no support for this particular thing. So if you will declare an array like this, you will get an error. But now modern compilers provide support for this particular thing, in which you can take input for a particular variable and then you can assign that variable as size to a particular array. So modern compilers have started providing support for this particular type of array, declaration of array. So, and in our general day-to-day programming language journey, we are going to use this method, but generally this is considered as the safest way to declare the size of an array. I hope this is clear. Now you have a clear understanding of arrays in C, how we declare an array, how we print an array, how we take input. So this is clear to everyone. And in the next video, we will solve some problems, and then we will be more comfortable with the arrays. That's it for this particular video. Thanks. Bye.